Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick. In this video we're going to be comparing the Adidas Boston 12 and the New Balance Rebel V4. So the Boston 12 and the Rebel V4 are two of my favourite running shoes. I'd say they're both really good versatile training shoes that have a little bit of an edge towards the speedy end of things, which is generally how I like my daily trainers. They approach the brief of a daily trainer in slightly different ways, with much more tech in the Adidas, but they're coming around a similar price, with the New Balance Rebel being $140 or £140, whereas the Boston is £140 or $160. Boston is the heavier shoe. It's 259 grams or 9.1 ounces in the UK 9, whereas the Rebel is 219 grams or 7.7 ounces. It's a UK 9.5, so that's a slightly bigger size as well, while still being a fair bit lighter. New Balance has a 6mm drop. The drop on the Boston is 7mm, and it's the highest stack shoe with a stack height of 38mm at the heel and 31mm at the forefoot, whereas the Rebel is 30mm at the heel and 24mm at the forefoot. So with the Boston 12, you've got a very lightweight mesh upper with really minimal padding, very racy design. It's quite similar actually to the uppers you get on Adidas's racing shoes. Little strip of padding at the back there to hold the heel in place and cradle the Achilles a little bit. You have a dual density midsole with a top layer of Adidas's Light Strike Pro foam and then a bottom layer of Light Strike EVA 2.0, the second version of Light Strike, which is important because it's a much better foam than the original Light Strike foam you had. You've got Adidas's Energy Rods 2.0 running through the midsole. These are the glass fibre version of Adidas's Energy Rods to give you a little bit of extra pop without being quite as stiff as the carbon ones you have on some of the racing shoes. And you've got a Continental rubber outsole with really quite good coverage. This is an excellent rubber, as always the case with Continental. Grips really well, and all the key impact areas on the shoe are well covered. With the Rebel V4, you've got a lightweight mesh upper as well. You've got a very wide fit around the forefoot. You've got a little bit of padding on the tongue, but not much, and then a little bit at the back as well, but no kind of strips or anything like that to hold the heel in place, which is good because it doesn't really result in any Achilles irritation, which we'll come on to. You've got a Fuel Cell midsole, and this is the latest version of Fuel Cell. Well, it's hard to say. It's not really the latest version. It's a version of Fuel Cell. In this case, it's a blend of PIBA and EVA foams. There are now Fuel Cell foams that are full PIBA foams, but New Balance likes to keep us all guessing by just calling them all Fuel Cell. But it is quite a soft foam, fairly bouncy foam. And the Rebel V4 has got more foam in it than past Rebels. It's not only got a higher stack, but it's also a lot wider than past versions of the shoe. Once again, you've got pretty good outsole coverage, just like with the Boston. You've got a little bit less here, a bit more exposed foam, especially around the middle of the shoe. But again, key impact areas at the heel and forefoot are covered, and the shoe's been pretty good on grip for me as well. So I've got a fair bit to say about the fit of the shoes because they are interesting in a few different ways. The Adidas, I've got a UK 9 here, which is US 9.5. That is my normal size for Adidas and running shoes in general. So on length, it is very good. Also say it's a little bit wider than some of the Adizero shoes you've seen in the past. Even the Boston line had a tendency to be very torpedo-like in the past. That's not the case here, but it's not the widest shoe in the world, but it's not excessively narrow. What I will say though is it's a really stripped back upper, and it is a very racy upper to the point where it's not all that comfortable. It takes a bit of time to get the shoe on, I find. I've had to heel lock it because I did have a bit of heel rubbing at the back of the shoe when running longer distances. They get a bit of lace bite. If when you pull the laces tight, the tongue is very thin, so you can get a bit of that on the top of the foot. You can get it all set up to be comfortable for quite relaxed, easy runs, I found, but just a bit more of a faffy upper and a little bit less comfortable for sure than the one on the New Balance, which is a bit more geared up for training runs. You've got a little bit of padding. It's very easy to slip the shoe on and off, get a nice comfortable hold from the kind of heel and midfoot. And even though I've got half a size up here on my normal size of the UK 9.5, hasn't resulted in too much room in the forefoot. So I went half size up because the Rebel has sometimes been a very short shoe in the past. I should have just gone for my normal size, so actually I would say stick to your normal size with the Rebel, especially as it is a lot wider in the forefoot than past versions of the shoe. I have a narrow foot, so I was swimming around a little bit in that, but it didn't really negatively affect the fit for me, but I do think you'd be best off going for your normal running shoe size. So the upshot of it would be that get your normal running shoe size for both of these shoes, I'd say, but the Adidas upper is certainly less comfortable, and look out for how wide the New Balance is in the forefoot. So as I said at the start, I'm a big fan of both of these shoes, and I've done a big variety of training runs in both shoes because I do think they are really nice versatile shoes. I've done long runs in both shoes, a fair bit of just relaxed easy running, and sessions in both shoes, running a mix of reps, kind of longer reps around a mile or 2k, and then some 400s as well. So do feel that they are comfortable at a really big range of speeds, and they can go right down to very relaxing slow runs as well, and you can do all of that in these shoes. So So the Boston 12 was one of my favourite shoes of last year. It was a big upgrade, I thought, on what we had from the Boston 10 and 11. You've got a much lighter, more aggressive shoe that feels really good for speedy runs. You've got a fairly firmish midsole compared to the New Balance, but the way the foams meld together here creates a fairly smooth ride, and you can go right down to easy paces in the shoe, and it does feel soft enough and comfortable enough for those. Even cruising through an easy long run in the shoe felt quite relaxed, but then when you do want to push the pace, the shoe pushes you onto that chunk of Light Strike Pro under the forefoot along with the energy rods, and you get a nice propulsive feeling. It really does move you quickly onto your toes and then give you a nice punchy toe off as well. So it is certainly a shoe that you can run fast in, the Boston 12, whilst having that capability at slower paces as well. So if the Boston was one of my favourite shoes of last year, the Rebel is one of my favourite shoes of this year so far. It is quite different to past Rebels in how wide it is, but it retains the characteristics of the line, which is to be a very lightweight, simple shoe. There's no kind of tech in the midsole here. You've just got a slightly better foam than past Rebels, a bit softer, a bit bouncier, this Piba foam, and that wider base, which makes it a lot better for easy runs, relaxed run, long runs. Like I did a 15 miler in this shoe and it felt really good, and it's not the kind of distance that I've loved to do in past Rebels because they were a bit more stripped back, but with the extra width here you get more support, more comfort, and it still is fast. Like I did that as a progression run, finished quite quickly in that run. I've also taken the shoe down the track to run mile and 400 meter reps, and yeah, it's still fast because it is a lightweight shoe. It still moves you through your foot strike quite well. It's not as aggressive feeling as the Boston. You're not getting that firmness under the forefoot and the kind of punch you get from the rods, but you can still turn your feet over really nicely just because you've got a lightweight shoe on and it's got a decent foam in there to bounce you on your way. It was really interesting when I had both shoes on at the same time for a short run. It's a bit odd because they just don't feel like they are when you look at the stats on paper. So the Rebel to me feels like the higher stack shoe, the more comfortable shoe, the soft shoe, and it is softer and bouncy than the Boston for sure, but it's got a much lower stack on paper than the Boston, and the Boston feels almost like the lighter shoe. Even though the Rebel is really lightweight and feels lightweight, the Boston feels very light and poppy, got that firmer feel, especially under the forefoot, and it really gives you that drive to go out and run quick in it. And actually, when I was running them both at the same time, it was like, oh, the Boston doesn't feel like a shoe you can do easy runs in, but you know, when I used it throughout testing, I felt very comfortable going out for easy runs, but the Rebel felt a lot more relaxed and easy and comfortable for at slower paces, and it's got that wider design that makes it more stable for slow runs as well. Boston felt like a pure speed shoe when I was using them at the same time, but if you're testing the Boston by itself, it does feel really versatile and can do everything, but yeah, it does mean it probably skews a bit more towards the speedy end of things than the Rebel. So these are two great shoes, and they are versatile shoes all round as well. I think the Rebel has a bit more comfort all round. If you are looking at a daily trainer, you want to do a lot of relaxed runs and easy runs in the shoe, I think it is better to do those in the Rebel than the Boston because it's got that wide design, the softer feel underfoot, and it feels very high stack for a shoe that isn't high stack. Then it is still lightweight and poppy when you want to do fast runs, but I think the Boston has a bit more about it when it comes to faster running. If you're looking for a pure speed shoe, the Boston's going to give you that edge over short or long distances. I think it really comes to play probably more when you're doing sustained hard reps, when the extra efficiency benefits you get from the rods and the firmer feel just means you can keep turning your feet over and maintain the pace a bit more easily. I think when it comes to sustained long runs, that's probably the one area I didn't love as much about the Rebel when I was doing like kind of a hard hour in the shoe. It is better for intervals because it has that lightweight design. And when I did a progression run in the shoe, moving through the gears, it felt very good. But if you're going to go out and start doing runs with kind of longish sections around your race pace, the Boston would be the better option because it is the much racier shoe all round, especially that upper, which I think adds to the fact it's a less comfortable shoe for daily training because it's a bit more fussy, a bit less comfortable than the upper on the New Balance. You've got to really think about the upper on the Boston to make sure it doesn't rob you or bite into you in some way. It's quite a racy upper for a shoe that I would consider very good for a range of runs when it comes to the midsole. If I was looking to get one shoe to do absolutely everything, including very fast runs and racing, I think the Boston is the more versatile shoe because it has a better top end, but I do think the Rebel is more comfortable at the easy end of things, and if I was looking to get a daily trainer to use in a rotation with the carbon plate racing shoe, I think the Rebel probably would have the edge just because it is that bit more relaxed all round and does really do a nice job of everything. It just maybe doesn't have the all-out speed that you can get from the Boston, so that's where I turn to a faster shoe within a rotation. I think there's probably enough overlap here that I wouldn't really look at getting both shoes because they do quite a lot of similar runs, but if you do have a big rotation and like to have an unplated and a plated shoe in, I mean this isn't plated but it has rods in it to achieve the same effect, so if you like to have a mix of simpler shoes and more technological shoes in your range, then these are both really good options. They are also pretty good value, both of them, I'd say, and not only at RRP, which is fine, but they are shoes that pop up in sales a lot. I've seen the Boston in sales for well under 100 quid, and that's exceptional value for such a versatile shoe. So they could be a nice double act if you manage to pick them both up at very good prices, but overall, like I say, I think the Boston probably is the overall more versatile shoe because it does have that extra performance for speedy running, but the Rebel is the shoe you'd probably be more comfortable using very regularly as a daily trainer just because it is that bit more comfortable, it slips on a bit nicer, the upper's a bit better, and it has a more relaxed, supportive feel for easy runs all round. Boston can do those too, but I think the Rebel's better at them, just like the Boston's a little bit better at those fast days. So that's our comparison of the Rebel V4 and the Boston 12. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.